If they ask, you never saw me. Caleb Hayes stared at the porch camera while freezing rain rattled against the metal roof of Red Mesa weather station. It was 2:08 in the morning. Outside, the temperature had fallen to 29 degrees Fahrenheit, and a hard northern wind pushed silver sheets of rain across the empty plateau. The woman beneath his porch light looked like she had walked through most of it. Cyan blue skin had gone pale around her lips. Wet silver-white hair clung to tapered ears, and the delicate biological ridges running from her temples toward elongated cheekbones. Her amber eyes, larger than human eyes and divided by narrow vertical pupils, kept shifting toward the darkness behind her. Caleb pressed the intercom. Usually people say hello first. There is no time. There is enough time to be standing on my porch. She looked over her shoulder. Far beyond the greenhouse, a white searchlight moved briefly across the western ridge, disappeared behind the rain, then returned. Caleb's expression changed. Friends? No. That was my second guess. Do not open the door. Caleb checked the weather display. Wind chill made the exposed temperature feel closer to 20 degrees. The nearest occupied farm was 19 miles away. You walked here. Part of the way. That answer sounds cold. Human, listen to me. If they see me enter, they will stop here. Caleb released the door lock. The mechanical bolts withdrew. Her eyes widened. You should not have done that. He pulled the door open against the wind. Temperature is 29 degrees. We can discuss my judgment indoors. For 1 second she did not move. Then another searchlight swept across the ridge. She stepped inside. Caleb sealed the door. The storm became a dull metallic roar beyond the insulated walls. Water ran from her coat onto the entry floor. He kept several feet between them and pointed toward the greenhouse corridor. Heater is warmer back there. I cannot stay long. Good. I only have one guest blanket. She looked at him as if unsure whether he was serious. Caleb retrieved a thermal blanket and a bowl of vegetable soup left from dinner. She accepted the blanket but ignored the food. Name? He asked. Silence. Mine is Caleb. This is normally where conversation becomes reciprocal. Neria Vale. All right, Neria Vale. Are you injured? No. Being followed? Her gaze shifted toward the weather windows. Yes. Caleb nodded. That one I had. The main terminal chimed. Frontier priority notice. He crossed the room and opened it. A face appeared beside a recovery alert. Neria Vale. Valari female. Fugitive status active. Reward. 240,000 credits. Charge. Theft of emergency navigation property. Caleb read it once, then looked at her. Neria had finally taken the soup. She held the warm bowl between both hands without eating. 240,000, he said. That seems unfriendly. If you want the reward, wait until the storm clears. Caleb raised an eyebrow. That is an unusually considerate surrender. I do not want you outside in this weather either. Something about the answer made him look at her more carefully. Did you steal the navigation property? Neria met his eyes. Yes. No hesitation. No excuse. Caleb glanced at the searchlight moving beyond the ring. That simplifies one question. You should report me. You just told me to pretend I never saw you. Circumstances change. Mine usually wait until breakfast. Neria finally took one spoonful of soup. Caleb turned back to the notice and opened the stolen property description. Emergency Rescue Identity Transponder. He frowned. Not a navigation core. Not flight controls. A transponder. Behind him, a faint electronic pulse sounded. Once. Then again several seconds later. Caleb turned slowly. A small device hung from a cord around Neria's neck, partly hidden beneath her wet coat. A green indicator blinked in perfect rhythm with the pulse. Caleb reached for a handheld receiver and checked the local spectrum. An encrypted emergency identity signal filled the display. Strong. Active. Broadcasting. He stared at Neria. You are transmitting your location. I know. That defeats several traditional goals of being a fugitive. Neria looked toward the distant searchlight moving steadily closer to the weather station. Her voice became very quiet. I need them following me. Caleb looked at the active transponder, then at Neria. The green indicator blinked again. Somewhere beyond the rain. Anyone carrying the correct receiver could watch that signal announce exactly where she was. How long has this been transmitting? He asked. 17 hours. And you have been carrying it intentionally. Yes. I am going to need the version of this story where that makes sense. Neria set the soup on the greenhouse work table. Warm air moved through rows of tomato vines and dwarf citrus trees beneath amber grow lights. Rain tapped against the transparent roof panels. 3 days ago, the passenger carrier Bright Horizon lost primary propulsion 86 miles above Red Mesa. Caleb knew the incident. Frontier News had reported a controlled evacuation with no confirmed fatalities. 112 passengers, he said. That is the official number. Neria's expression hardened. There were 149. Caleb stopped. 37 missing from the manifest. Not missing. Removed. She pulled a small data wafer from an inner pocket and placed it on the table. Caleb did not touch it. Who were they? Contract migrants traveling under temporary labor permits. Their transfer documents had not cleared Port Authority before departure. Bright Horizon carried them anyway. Why erase them after the failure? Liability. Unauthorized passengers increase insurance exposure and trigger a transport investigation. Caleb glanced toward the weather terminal. And you? Junior navigation technician. You helped evacuate them. I routed them to secondary shuttle 4. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. The official evacuation controller ordered that shuttle returned empty. Caleb understood the sentence before she explained it. You ignored the order. Yes. 37 people boarded. 37. Where are they now? Neria looked directly at him. I cannot tell you. Caleb nodded once. Fair. That seemed to surprise her. He picked up his receiver and studied the transponder signal. This belonged to Shuttle 4. Its emergency identity unit. So anyone tracking the rescue beacon assumes the shuttle is wherever this is. He touched the receiver screen. Neria nodded. I removed it before the shuttle departed. Caleb stared at her. You walked away carrying the one device designed to make rescuers find you. Reward recovery teams are not rescuers. Still seems like an aggressively visible escape plan. It was not an escape plan. Another green pulse. Caleb looked toward the western ridge. Searchlight. Closer. You wanted them following the beacon instead of the shuttle. Yes. For 17 hours. Yes. Caleb rubbed one hand across his jaw. He had spent 14 years flying search and rescue before taking over the Red Mesa station. He knew what 37 extra passengers did to a shuttle's numbers. Fuel changed. Oxygen changed. Thermal load changed. Mass changed. Machines could be persuaded to hide names. Physics was less cooperative. Do you have Bright Horizon's evacuation telemetry? Neria hesitated, then handed him the data wafer. Caleb inserted it into an isolated weather terminal. Flight records filled the screen. Secondary Shuttle 4. Official occupancy, 0. He opened oxygen consumption. That is not empty. Neria said nothing. Caleb checked cabin circulation, carbon dioxide scrubber load, and maneuvering fuel. He ran a rough occupancy estimate. 34 minimum. 41 maximum. He narrowed it using life support temperature. 36 to 39 biological occupants. There were 37. Caleb leaned back. The numbers believe you. Neria's amber eyes shifted toward him. You do not. I barely know you. Her face closed again. Then report me. That is not what I said. Caleb opened the official Bright Horizon filing beside the raw telemetry. Shuttle 4 listed empty, repositioning flight. The oxygen record contradicted it cleanly. He copied the discrepancy into a protected file. This is enough to justify questions. Questions are not enough yet. Why? Neria checked the station clock. 2:46 in the morning. Because the people on that shuttle are still inside Bright Horizon's recovery jurisdiction. Caleb looked at her. For how long? Until sunrise. What happens at sunrise? An agricultural convoy crosses the southern frontier boundary. Caleb understood. The 37 passengers were not simply hiding. They were moving. How far south? Neria remained silent. Caleb raised both hands slightly. Right? Still not telling me. No. Good operational discipline. He looked again at the transponder around her neck. I can disable that beacon in 30 seconds. Do not. Neria, they are following it directly to my station. That is why I chose this place. Caleb became still. She glanced around the isolated greenhouse, the weather instruments, the empty plateau beyond the rain. Your station is the most isolated occupied structure within 70 miles of their predicted search corridor. Caleb stared at her. You used my house as bait. Yes. Could have mentioned that before the soup. You would have closed the door. Caleb looked toward the searchlight sweeping closer through the freezing rain. then back at the frightened woman who had deliberately made herself the easiest person on Red Mesa to find. "You do not know me very well," he said. Caleb spent the next 12 minutes proving to himself that Neria had chosen his weather station for more than isolation. He opened the Red Mesa jurisdiction map and overlaid the Bright Horizon recovery zone. The southern boundary cut across agricultural territory 180 miles away. Beyond it, Commercial Recovery Authority ended unless a frontier magistrate issued a separate order. "Your convoy crosses here?" he asked. Neria stood beside the greenhouse heater, still wrapped in the thermal blanket. "Near there. You are getting very skilled at not answering questions. You are getting very skilled at asking dangerous ones." Caleb accepted that. He switched to regional weather radar. The freezing rain covered most of western Red Mesa, reducing visibility and slowing surface traffic. 5 moving signatures appeared beyond the western ridge. "Those yours?" Neria stepped closer. Her amber eyes narrowed. "Recovery vehicles. 5. There were 4 earlier. Apparently you are becoming popular." The transponder around her neck pulsed again. Caleb watched the signatures adjust course almost immediately. Straight toward the station. "They are definitely following this." "Good. That word is doing unreasonable work tonight." Caleb opened his old search and rescue console. He had not used the Frontier Rescue Network professionally in 7 years, but his credentials still allowed him to submit safety discrepancies. He attached Bright Horizon's official evacuation report and Shuttle 4's raw telemetry. "What are you doing?" Neria asked. "Asking people with better offices why an empty shuttle consumed enough oxygen for 37 passengers." Her posture tightened. "If you send that now, Bright Horizon will know someone has the telemetry. They already know you took the transponder. The data is different." Caleb paused before transmitting. "Do you want me to stop?" Neria looked at the screen. Outside, rain hissed against the greenhouse panels. "If investigators open a formal discrepancy before the convoy crosses, Bright Horizon may request a broader search." Caleb removed his hand from the control. "Then we wait." She studied him. "You believe me enough to delay reporting evidence?" "No." Caleb pointed toward the telemetry. "I believe oxygen consumption, carbon dioxide load, cabin temperature, and maneuvering fuel. They have fewer emotional complications." Something almost like amusement crossed her face. "Human rescue pilots are strange." Former rescue pilot. That explains the aircraft outside. Caleb glanced toward the hangar. His old 2-seat rescue skimmer sat fueled and flight-ready. "You noticed?" "I notice exits." "I noticed that." Neria looked toward the hangar door. "If the hunters arrive before the convoy crosses, I may need it." Caleb shook his head. "No." Her expression hardened. "You said you would not stop me." "I will not. I am saying the skimmer is a terrible escape plan." He pulled up local flight conditions. Freezing rain. Crosswind 41 miles per hour. Low cloud ceiling. You would light up every regional tracking system the second you launched. "Then what do you suggest?" Caleb looked at the active beacon. "Stay exactly where they expect you to be." Neria stared at him. "That was already my plan." "Then congratulations. We have achieved professional agreement." The 5 vehicle signatures were now 14 miles away. Estimated arrival, 32 minutes. Caleb opened Frontier Recovery statutes. Commercial agents could approach private property and demand return of registered stolen equipment. They could not enter an occupied residence without consent or judicial authorization unless an immediate safety emergency existed. "They can ask for the transponder," he said. "I know. They cannot enter without a residential recovery warrant. They will request one." "How fast?" "Bright Horizon has excellent lawyers." "That is not a unit of time." Caleb searched recent authorization logs. Median emergency processing after midnight, 35 to 42 minutes. He looked at Neria. "When does the convoy cross?" 5:17. Caleb checked the clock. 3:11. More than 2 hours. His expression changed. "That is too long." "I know. The hunters arrive in half an hour. Even if the warrant takes 40 minutes, they are inside before 4:30. "I know." Caleb looked at her. "You plan to leave before then?" Neria did not answer. His eyes moved toward the rescue skimmer. "You plan to keep moving the beacon?" "Yes." Weather station was never the final stop. "No." Caleb exhaled slowly. The strategy was clever and unsustainable. Every new location bought time, but increased the chance that weather, fuel, or a blocked road ended the chase somewhere she had not chosen. How long have you slept? He asked. That is irrelevant. How long? Silence. 28 hours. Caleb looked at her wet boots, the blanket, the bowl of soup barely touched. You are not flying my skimmer. You cannot decide that for me. Correct. He turned the tablet toward her. So decide after looking at this. He displayed wind, icing probability, cloud ceiling, and terrain visibility. Naria read every number. Her shoulders lowered slightly. Unsafe. Very. The transponder pulsed again. 11 miles. Caleb returned to the rescue telemetry. 37 hidden passengers. 1 agricultural convoy. 5 reward vehicles following a woman who had made herself visible so everyone else could disappear. Then he noticed something in the weather map. A narrow band of heavier freezing rain was moving east across the western ridge. Estimated arrival at the station, 26 minutes. Estimated duration, 54. Caleb enlarged the radar. Naria. She came beside him. What? He pointed at the storm band. You wanted somewhere they would find you. Yes. Caleb looked at the greenhouse, the residential warrant rules, and 5 vehicle signatures approaching through worsening weather. Maybe we stop running and make them wait here instead. Caleb's plan depended on 3 things he did not control: weather, frontier bureaucracy, and reward hunters choosing to obey the law. He disliked all 3 immediately. At 3:21 in the morning, the heavier storm band reached the western ridge. Freezing rain thickened against the station windows until the 5 approaching vehicle signatures slowed from 38 miles per hour to 22. Caleb watched their estimated arrival shift from 17 minutes to 29. That bought us 12 minutes, he said. Naria stood beside him with the transponder still pulsing against her chest. Weather bought us 12 minutes. I maintain the weather station. I am claiming partial credit. Her amber eyes almost warmed. Then she looked at the convoy clock. 1 hour 56 minutes until 5:17. Still too long. Caleb opened the station property record. Red Mesa Weather Station was classified as an occupied frontier residence because he lived above the greenhouse year-round. That gave him stronger entry protections than an unmanned research site. They can surround the property, he said. They can request surrender of the beacon. They can request you voluntarily step outside. They cannot cross the residential boundary without consent, emergency justification, or a warrant. And when the warrant arrives, we discover whether bureaucracy can finally be useful. Naria looked unconvinced. Caleb opened the Frontier Magistrate queue. 7 overnight requests already pending. Severe weather had delayed 2 regional communications relays. Estimated processing time had risen to 51 minutes. Better. Not enough. You have a remarkable talent for damaging optimism. Your optimism has poor arithmetic. Caleb looked at the clock. She was right. Even with 51 minutes after the hunters arrived, sunrise remained too far away. Then we need another delay that does not involve lying. Naria turned toward him. Why not lie? Because the first thing Recovery Council will do is record everything I say. If I lie about you being here, they can use that to accelerate entry authorization. You have done this before. Caleb's expression changed. Search and rescue sometimes meant keeping private recovery crews away from accident survivors until medical jurisdiction was clear. He opened his old rescue procedures. Different problem. Similar paperwork. At 3:47, 5 white lights appeared through the rain beyond the property fence. Vehicles stopped outside the marked residential boundary. The station communications panel chimed almost immediately. Incoming commercial recovery channel. Caleb looked at Naria. You want me to answer? It is your home. That was not the question. She considered it, then nodded. Caleb accepted audio only. A man's voice entered the greenhouse. Caleb Hayes, this is Grant Voss, licensed recovery supervisor operating under Bright Horizon commercial authorization. We are tracking stolen emergency property to your residence. Caleb glanced at the beacon. Your receiver works. We require return of the transponder and surrender of the individual carrying it. Send the legal basis for the second request. Silence. Then a document appeared. Naria's fugitive notice. Caleb read it. This authorizes recovery of company property. It requests detention assistance. It does not authorize residential entry. Voss answered calmly. A magistrate request is already processing. Then I suppose we both get to experience government efficiency. Naria looked at him. Caleb kept his face neutral. Mr. Hayes, Interference may expose you to civil liability. Noted. Are you confirming Neria Vale is inside? Caleb looked directly at her. He remembered her first sentence. If they ask, you never saw me. Then he answered carefully. I am confirming your beacon signal terminates at my property. I am also confirming this is an occupied residence. He disconnected. Neria stared at him. You did not lie. I am sentimental about keeping my legal advantages. The magistrate queue updated. Recovery entry request received. Estimated review, 48 minutes. Caleb checked the clock. 3:51. Approval around 4:39. Convoy crossing at 5:17. 38 minutes short. Neria removed the blanket. Then I leave before 4:39. How? Ground vehicle. They have 5. On foot. 29 degrees, freezing rain, and they already know what you look like. Then I find another way. Caleb did not argue. Instead, he returned to the Bright Horizon telemetry. Shuttle 4. 37 passengers. Agricultural convoy. Frontier boundary. Something bothered him. You said the convoy crosses at 5:17. Yes. Why exactly 5:17? Neria hesitated. Scheduled freight gate opening. Caleb opened the Southern Agricultural Network. The storm had moved east. Freight authorities were advancing morning departures to avoid ice accumulation after sunrise. A notice had been issued 8 minutes earlier. Southern Frontier Agricultural Gate. Early opening authorized. New crossing window, 4:42. Caleb stared at it. Neria. She came to the terminal. Her eyes widened. 4:42. 3 minutes after the estimated warrant decision. Caleb refreshed the magistrate queue. Severe weather delay. Estimated review, 54 minutes. New estimate, 4:45. Neither spoke. 3 minutes. That was all the margin they had. Outside, 5 recovery vehicles waited beneath the freezing rain. Inside, the beacon continued to pulse. Caleb looked at the clock, then at Neria. Now we do absolutely nothing. She frowned. Nothing. Nothing heroic. Nothing clever. We keep the beacon here, keep the door closed, and let 3 minutes become the most useful thing on Red Mesa. For the next 40 minutes, Caleb discovered that doing nothing required constant attention. He checked the magistrate queue every 60 seconds. Neria watched the Southern Freight Network. The transponder continued its steady pulse from the greenhouse table, each green flash telling the 5 recovery vehicles outside that their target had not moved. Freezing rain softened into sleet against the transparent roof. 4:12. 4:19. 4:27. Nobody crossed the residential boundary. Grant Voss called twice. Caleb declined both channels. He will interpret silence as obstruction, Neria said. Silence is not illegal. You sound confident. I sound like someone hoping that sentence survives legal review. She looked toward the dark windows. You could still give them the transponder. Caleb glanced at her. Would that help the convoy? No. Then this conversation has excellent efficiency. Neria became quiet. At 4:31, the Southern Agricultural Gate changed status. PRE opening inspection. 11 minutes. Caleb looked at the magistrate queue. 14 minutes. 3 minutes of margin remained. Still close, he said. It was always close. You could have selected a less stressful method of helping 37 strangers. I considered asking Bright Horizon politely. Caleb looked at her. A faint smile touched her mouth. It vanished when the external channel activated again. This time Voss transmitted a formal notice. Residential recovery request. Final review. Caleb read the attached timestamp. They are close. Neria removed the transponder cord from beneath her coat, but kept the device in her hand. When the convoy crosses, I will surrender this. And yourself? If necessary. Caleb turned toward her. Theft charge is still active. I stole it. To protect passengers erased from an evacuation record. Intent does not make the device less stolen. Caleb appreciated that she never tried to make herself simpler than the facts. Maybe not. It does make the reason relevant. Neria looked at the weather terminal. You keep expecting systems to care about reasons. Occupational damage from rescue work. 4:38. Agricultural gate. For minutes. Magistrate review. 7. Caleb opened Bright Horizon's raw telemetry again. The discrepancy package remained unsent. Neria noticed. Send it after the convoy crosses. That was the plan. No. Her voice changed. Send it now. Caleb stopped. You said formal review could widen the search. The convoy is already at the gate. If investigators begin preservation now, Bright Horizon cannot quietly replace the telemetry afterward. Caleb studied her. That increases your risk. Yes. You are sure. Neria looked at the transponder in her hand. I did not carry this for 17 hours so the evidence could disappear in the final 4 minutes. Caleb turned to the rescue network. He attached Shuttle 4's oxygen consumption, carbon dioxide scrubber load, thermal readings, maneuvering fuel, and official occupancy report. He added no accusation. Only one sentence. Official zero occupancy declaration inconsistent with recorded life support load. He looked at Neria. She nodded. Caleb pressed send. Frontier Rescue Authority received. Evidence preservation request automatically generated. 4:40. 2 minutes. Outside, one recovery vehicle shifted closer to the property marker but stopped before crossing it. Boss called. Caleb answered audio only. Mr. Hayes, our entry authorization is approaching approval. So I noticed. This is your final opportunity to resolve the matter voluntarily. Caleb looked at Neria. She stood beside the greenhouse table, transponder visible in her open palm. No hiding. No running. We are waiting on another process, Caleb said. What process? Frontier Rescue Authority. Silence. Voss returned carefully. This is a commercial property recovery. Maybe. There is no maybe. Caleb looked at the telemetry preservation confirmation appearing on his terminal. That seems like something investigators can enjoy discussing with you. He ended the channel. 4:41. The agricultural gate indicator turned amber. Neria stopped breathing for a moment. Caleb watched the convoy registry. 7 freight vehicles waiting. The system did not identify passengers. Good. 4:42. Southern Frontier, gate open. The convoy began moving. 1 vehicle crossed. 2. 3. Neria stood completely still. 4. 5. 6. The 7th crossed the jurisdiction line. Caleb's terminal remained silent. Is that all of them? He asked. Neria did not answer. Her eyes stayed on the screen. Then an encrypted message arrived through the agricultural network. 1 word. Safe. Neria closed her eyes. The transponder continued blinking in her hand, but something in her posture finally stopped running. Caleb checked the magistrate queue. Residential recovery authorization. Decision pending. Estimated completion, 1 minute. They made it, he said. Neria opened her eyes. Yes. 37. 37. Caleb exhaled. Good. She looked toward the front door. Now I give them what they came for. Caleb glanced at the active rescue investigation notice. You do not have to walk out before the legal status changes. Neria wrapped her fingers around the beacon. Neither did you have to open the door. Outside, 5 vehicle lights waited in the fading sleet. Inside, the greenhouse heater hummed beneath rows of wet leaves. For 17 hours, Neria had carried a signal so other people could disappear from the map. Now they were safe beyond the frontier, and for the first time that night, the beacon around which everyone had been moving no longer had anyone left to protect. The magistrate decision arrived at 4:43, but it was not the answer Grant Voss expected. Caleb's terminal chimed once. Residential recovery authorization, held for jurisdictional review. Related frontier rescue investigation detected. Neria read the notice over his shoulder. Held is not denied. No. They can still approve it. Yes. She looked toward the front door. Then I should go before they do. Caleb did not block her. If that is your choice, I will open the door. Neria studied him for a moment, perhaps expecting an argument. Instead, Caleb opened the Frontier Rescue Authority case attached to the telemetry he had submitted. Evidence preservation active. Official evacuation records locked. Bright Horizon could no longer alter the raw flight data while investigators reviewed it. Another status appeared beneath the first. Field investigator dispatched. Estimated arrival, 12 minutes. Neria stared at the screen. 12 minutes. Apparently somebody at Frontier Rescue drinks very strong coffee. The external channel activated. Caleb accepted audio. Grant Voss sounded less patient now. Mr. Hayes, our recovery request has been delayed because of an unrelated filing from your station. I would challenge the word unrelated. The transponder remains registered Bright Horizon property. Nobody disputed that. Then return it. Neria stepped closer to the communications panel. Caleb looked at her. She nodded. He enabled her microphone. Supervisor Voss. Silence lasted half a second. Miss Vale. Step outside with the transponder, and this can remain a property matter. Neria looked toward the greenhouse windows. Dawn had not arrived, but the eastern darkness was beginning to thin. Will you confirm that your recovery authority concerns the transponder? Voss answered carefully. And your active fugitive status? My fugitive status derives from taking the transponder. Correct. Then I will surrender the device to Frontier Rescue investigators when they arrive. Voss paused. Bright Horizon owns it. Then Bright Horizon can request it from evidence custody. Caleb looked at Neria. That was not running. That was choosing where the evidence went. Voss disconnected. Outside, the 5 vehicles remained beyond the property markers. 5 minutes passed. Then 7. Neria stood beside the entryway holding the beacon. The green pulse continued. Caleb checked the southern frontier status again. The agricultural convoy was already 19 miles beyond Bright Horizon's commercial recovery jurisdiction. Safe remained on the encrypted channel. You can turn it off now, he said. Neria looked at the transponder. I know. Her thumb found the control. The green light disappeared. For the first time since she had entered his home, the local spectrum became quiet. Neria exhaled. 17 hours. You carried that signal for 17 hours. 17 hours and 26 minutes. Caleb nodded. I respect unnecessary precision. Headlights appeared through the thinning sleet from the Eastern Service Road. 2 dark blue Frontier vehicles approached the property and stopped beside the recovery perimeter. Official identification codes appeared on Caleb's terminal. Frontier Rescue Authority. The residential warrant status changed again. Recovery authorization suspended pending evidentiary review. Neria read it twice. Suspended. That one is better than held. A woman in a blue-gray field coat approached the property boundary and transmitted official credentials. Investigator Rachel Morgan. Caleb verified the authentication before opening the outer gate. Grant Voss exited his vehicle as well, but remained outside the residential line. Nobody shouted. Nobody rushed the house. The tension existed entirely in tablets, credentials, timestamps, and who possessed lawful authority over the next decision. Caleb opened the front door. Cold air entered. Neria stood beside him. You do not have to come with me, she said. I know. Then why are you? Caleb picked up the protected telemetry copy. Because I submitted evidence, and investigators generally become irritated when witnesses disappear into greenhouses. Her mouth moved slightly. Almost a smile. They walked to the property boundary together. Investigator Morgan looked first at Neria, then at the transponder in her hand. Miss Vale, are you surrendering that voluntarily as evidence? Yes. Neria placed it inside the investigator's open evidence container herself. Morgan sealed the case. Bright Horizon's evacuation records are under preservation order. Your theft allegation remains under review. You are not being transferred to commercial recovery custody at this time. Neria's shoulders lowered by a fraction. Voss stepped forward only far enough to be heard. The device belongs to our client. Morgan looked at the sealed container. Then your client may file a property claim after evidentiary processing. Voss did not argue further. The 5 recovery vehicles began leaving shortly afterward, one at a time, their lights fading across the wet plateau. Caleb watched them go. Neria stood beside him beneath the porch roof, where she had first appeared less than 3 hours earlier. The eastern horizon had turned pale orange. They came before sunrise, she said. Technically, they were early. Neria looked at him. You opened the door anyway. Caleb glanced toward the greenhouse, where her unfinished soup still sat beside the heater. 29 degrees. That cannot be your entire explanation. It was enough for the door. Behind them, the weather station hummed quietly. Ahead, investigators were beginning to compare 37 missing names against the flight telemetry. Neria had arrived carrying a signal designed to make herself impossible to overlook. By sunrise, the people she had protected were finally becoming impossible to erase. By 7:30 that morning, Red Mesa looked almost peaceful. The freezing rain had moved east, leaving silver water on the greenhouse roof and thin ice along the fence posts. Inside the weather station, investigator Rachel Morgan occupied Caleb's kitchen table with 3 tablets, 2 evidence seals, and the expression of someone discovering that breakfast would have to wait. Neria sat across from her, wearing Caleb's thermal blanket over her damp coat. The unfinished soup had finally been reheated. This time she ate it. Caleb stood at the weather console while Frontier Rescue compared Bright Horizon's official evacuation record against raw telemetry from secondary Shuttle 4. Cabin oxygen draw supports 36 to 39 occupants, Morgan said. Carbon dioxide scrubber load supports approximately the same range. Caleb nodded toward another graph. Thermal load is consistent too. Morgan looked at Neria. You stated 37 passengers. Yes. Names. Neria became still. They crossed jurisdiction safely. I will provide the names after I receive confirmation they cannot be returned through commercial recovery. Morgan did not pressure her. Reasonable. Frontier Migration Council is reviewing their status. Caleb glanced at Neria. She noticed. No celebration. Not yet. At 8:12, the first official response arrived. Bright Horizon Evacuation Report. Formal discrepancy confirmed. Investigation opened. Commercial recovery authorization remains suspended. Neria read the notice twice. What about the theft charge? Still active, Morgan said. But your stated emergency purpose is now part of the case record. So I am still a fugitive. Technically, you are a subject under protected review. You are not currently authorized for commercial detention. Caleb leaned against the counter. Government language remains undefeated. Morgan ignored him professionally. Another message arrived at 9. The agricultural convoy had reached a registered settlement beyond the southern frontier. Local authorities had confirmed 37 previously undocumented Bright Horizon survivors. Their identities were now preserved in a protected registry. Neria stopped holding her spoon. All 37. Morgan checked. All 37. Neria closed her eyes. Caleb remembered the green pulse against her chest. 17 hours and 26 minutes of deliberately making herself visible so those people could remain unseen long enough to reach safety. Now they had names again. At 10:40, Morgan prepared to return to the regional office. Miss Vale, we need your formal statement. Neria nodded. I will come. Caleb looked toward her. You sure? Yes. That was not me trying to change your answer. I know. She folded the thermal blanket and placed it neatly on the chair. That is why I answered. Caleb picked up the empty soup bowl. You are returning my blanket, but leaving me the dishes. Your hospitality has limits. Finally, something we agree on. A small smile reached her amber eyes. Outside, the Frontier Rescue vehicle waited beside the gate. No reward hunters remained. Their tire tracks were already filling with meltwater. Before leaving, Neria stopped at the porch. Caleb, yeah. Last night I chose your station because it was isolated. I remember taking that personally. I believed isolation meant nobody would become involved. Caleb looked across the wet plateau. That assumption performed poorly. Very. She glanced toward the greenhouse light, still glowing behind him. When you opened the door, I thought you did not understand the danger. I understood 29 degrees. You keep saying that. Strong argument. Neria shook her head slightly. Then her expression became serious. You checked the numbers before deciding what I was. Caleb looked at her. Numbers are useful that way. Most people saw the reward notice first. I saw it. And Caleb considered the question. 240,000 credits had been enough to make strangers chase her across Red Mesa. 37 erased passengers had been inconvenient enough for a company to pretend they were never aboard. Somewhere between those numbers sat a woman who had carried a beacon directly toward danger because other people needed time. It was a number attached to someone standing in my greenhouse, he said. I decided the someone deserved more attention. Neria held his gaze for a moment. Then Morgan called from the vehicle. Neria stepped off the porch. Caleb did not ask when she would return. He did not tell her everything would work out. The investigation still had weeks ahead of it. Bright Horizon would contest the telemetry. Lawyers would argue over emergency authority, theft, liability, and undocumented transport. None of that had become simple. But as Neria entered the Frontier Rescue vehicle, a new notification appeared on Caleb's terminal inside the station. 37 survivor identities formally added to Bright Horizon evacuation record. Caleb read it through the open doorway. For 3 days, a corporation had treated those people like they had never existed. One alien girl had made herself impossible to ignore until the record finally learned their names. 6 weeks passed before Caleb heard Neria's voice again. By then, the freezing storm had become something the weather station remembered only as archived pressure data and a damaged gutter above the greenhouse. Caleb was replacing that gutter when his terminal chimed through the open utility door. Frontier Rescue Authority case update. He climbed down, wiped his hands on his work pants, and opened the notice. Bright Horizons evacuation records had completed independent review. The 37 passengers from Secondary Shuttle 4 were formally recognized as survivors. Their undocumented transport status had been separated from the emergency evacuation investigation, preventing the company from using immigration paperwork to erase their presence aboard the carrier. Caleb continued reading. Raw telemetry from Shuttle 4 matched Neria's statement within accepted life support tolerances. Bright Horizon had known the shuttle carried passengers before filing the zero occupancy report. The company's commercial recovery authorization was permanently revoked for the incident. Caleb reached the final section. Neria Vale. Emergency property theft charge. Reclassified. Protected emergency action pending administrative closure. He read that twice. Not innocence by magic. Not a declaration that taking the transponder had somehow never happened. The record simply recognized why she had done it. His communications panel chimed before he finished. Neria appeared on the screen from a Frontier Rescue office. Her silver-white hair was dry now, her cyan-blue skin warm beneath ordinary indoor lighting. No rain. No beacon flashing against her chest. You received the ruling, she said. I was enjoying the government's romantic writing style. Protected emergency action is romantic. Compared with Fugitive, considerably. A small smile touched her face. Caleb leaned against the counter. How are the 37? 34 have temporary residency review. 3 chose transport to another jurisdiction where their contracts are recognized. Their choice. Yes. Good. Neria nodded. Bright Horizon offered settlements. That sounds expensive. It should. Caleb smiled. You have been spending too much time with accountants. Investigators are worse. Silence followed, comfortable enough that neither rushed to fill it. Then Caleb asked, What happens to you? Neria looked slightly surprised. My employment contract with Bright Horizon is terminated. Frontier Rescue offered me a navigation position. That sounds suspiciously respectable. I have not accepted. Why? Her amber eyes shifted towards something beyond the screen. I spent 3 days helping people disappear from a manifest, then 6 weeks helping investigators put them back into one. I am not certain I want another organization deciding what counts as an acceptable rescue. Caleb understood more than he wanted to admit. 7 years earlier, he had left search and rescue for reasons that sounded different on paper and similar in the chest. You do not have to decide quickly. You say that as if humans are patient. We are excellent at recommending virtues we do not possess. Neria laughed softly. No fear behind it this time. Caleb looked toward the greenhouse. The same heater hummed beneath rows of tomatoes. The same table stood where her transponder had blinked through the night. Your soup bowl survived, he said. You kept it. It belongs to the station. Then your attachment is administrative. Exactly. Her smile lingered. A second notice appeared on Caleb's terminal. Case status. Commercial reward canceled. Reward claims void. Neria saw his eyes move. What? Caleb opened the notice. 240,000 credits just disappeared. Disappointed? Deeply. I had plans for a better gutter. You never reported me. Technical obstacle. Which one? Caleb looked at her. I never figured out what you were worth. Neria went quiet. Caleb immediately regretted how the sentence sounded. That came out badly. No. Her expression softened. I understood. Outside, late afternoon sunlight crossed the Red Mesa plateau where 5 recovery vehicles had once waited in freezing rain. Caleb looked at the empty road. So what now? Neria considered it. The final administrative closure is expected tomorrow. And after that? I do not know. Caleb nodded. Good answer. You said that about uncertainty before? Probably. Living alone encourages recycled wisdom. Neria looked directly at him. Caleb, when the case closes, I may come to Red Mesa. He did not ask why. Weather is better. That is not why. Greenhouse tomatoes? Also not why. Caleb waited. Neria smiled slightly. I want to see what your station looks like when nobody is chasing me. The screen went dark a few minutes later. Caleb returned outside to the broken gutter. Above him, the sky was clear from horizon to horizon. 6 weeks earlier, Neria had chosen the most isolated house on Red Mesa because she needed somewhere the hunters would find her. Now, With the reward gone and 37 names restored to the record, she was considering coming back for the first reason that belonged entirely to her. The final administrative closure arrived the next morning at 8:14. Caleb read it beside the greenhouse irrigation controls while sunlight warmed the eastern windows. Nary avail. Emergency property case closed. No active recovery authority. He stared at the final line for a moment, then returned to a leaking nutrient valve. Red Mesa had developed an impressive ability to make important events compete with plumbing. 3 days later, at 6:20 in the evening, someone knocked on the front door. 3 times. Caleb froze with a wrench in his hand. The rhythm was ordinary. His memory was not. He crossed the station and checked the porch camera. Naria stood beneath the same light where he had first seen her in freezing rain. This time the sky behind her was clear. Her cyan blue skin carried the warm color of sunset instead of cold porch light. Silver-white hair moved gently around her tapered ears. No soaked coat. No thermal blanket. No green pulse beneath her collar. No searchlight crossed the ridge behind her. Caleb opened the intercom. If they ask, should I still pretend I never saw you? Naria looked directly into the camera. There is nobody to ask. Caleb unlocked the door. That is less exciting. When it opened, Naria remained on the porch for a second. Caleb glanced behind her. Empty road. Red plateau. Long evening shadows. You checking for reward hunters? She asked. Professional habit. You were never a reward hunter. Exactly why I am still alive enough to have habits. She smiled. Caleb stepped aside. Need shelter. Naria looked past him toward the greenhouse, where amber lights glowed beneath rows of tomatoes and dwarf citrus trees. No. The answer was immediate. Caleb waited. I wanted to see what this place looked like when I was not running. He nodded toward the greenhouse. Mostly tomatoes. I suspected deception. She walked inside because she chose to, not because a searchlight had appeared behind her. Caleb closed the door. The station sounded different without a storm pressing against it. Ventilation hum. Irrigation clicks. A distant weather relay turning on its mount. Nothing urgent. Naria stopped beside the table where she had once placed the stolen transponder. You move the bowl. Dishwashing technology has advanced significantly. In 3 days, frontier living encourages innovation. She laughed. Caleb returned to the greenhouse valve. Naria followed. The 37 sent a message, she said. Caleb looked up. All of them. A shared recording. Some are staying at the agricultural settlement. Others have accepted work elsewhere. One family is leaving Red Mesa entirely. Their choice. Their choice. Caleb tightened the valve by a quarter turn. Good. Naria watched water pressure stabilize. Frontier Rescue repeated the navigation offer. And I declined. Caleb kept his attention on the gauge. Any particular reason? I want to work with independent evacuation networks. Smaller organizations. Fewer people who think a clean report matters more than an accurate one. Sounds financially irresponsible. You approve? Deeply. She smiled again. They walked outside after sunset. The temperature had settled near 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Caleb sat on the porch step with 2 mugs of coffee. Naria took one and looked across the plateau. 6 weeks earlier, 5 recovery vehicles had waited beyond the property line. Now there was nothing but grass moving in the evening wind. I owe you an apology, she said. Caleb looked at her. For what? Using your station as bait. That was rude. I believed you would close the door if you knew. Caleb took a drink. Maybe. Naria turned toward him. You said I did not know you very well. You did not. I still do not. That generally takes longer than one storm. She considered this. Then perhaps I should stay long enough to improve the data. Caleb looked at her over the rim of his mug. That sounded suspiciously like research. I was a navigation technician. Close enough. The greenhouse lights glowed behind them. Naria looked toward the western ridge where the first searchlight had appeared that night. When I came here before, I needed them to find me. I remember. Tonight nobody knows I am here. Caleb understood what she was giving him. Not gratitude. Not obligation. A choice. He looked back toward the open station door. 29 degrees was enough reason to open it the first time. Naria's amber eyes warmed. And tonight? Caleb glanced at the clear sky. 58. Then your temperature argument has failed. Completely. Naria smiled. Caleb smiled back. Neither moved toward the door. There was no countdown now. No beacon. No convoy trying to cross a jurisdiction line. No reward attached to her name. The first time Neria came to Red Mesa, she needed a place where the hunters would find her instead of 37 people the world had erased. The second time, she came because nobody was chasing her at all. And somehow, to Caleb, that choice meant more than opening the door ever had.